I've spent a few days putting together several molding pieces. I basically have made enough now for my large trees to have a front and a back, two pieces each branch, and then I've made several smaller ones as well. So I've got a couple of different sized trees. I also made a few extra pieces in case I need to kind of patch and fill things together. Some of the edges get a little frayed, so I actually want to make sure that I can make sure the tree stays even all the way around. So the next stage at this point is going to be hot gluing the branches together. The hot glue seems to work fine on the cardboard and on the actual resin itself. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and make each of these and see how they turn out. One of the things I wanted to do is make sure that I widen the base of the tree a little bit. When I actually made the molds, I actually molded them with some just basically paper towel wrapped around the bottom half of it, taped on, which gave it a nice thicker kind of base. That way there's a slight taper as it goes up. So all these molds have got this slight taper going on them. I want to keep that when I join it together. I also need to be able to glue it to something. So basically what I'm doing here is getting some paper towels, just wrapping up a little bit around the base. I'm not going too huge, but I just want to take it out just a little bit. And then just pretty much just taping them down. And I'm going to do a slight gradual decline up here, so I'm gonna get it. I'm just gonna tape down the end. Then wrap it around. And build it up as it goes. So I've got this slight area that's built up just enough to help that tree branch kind of hold its shape a little better. So when I'm satisfied with enough of a build up on the base there, what I'm going to do is basically just start hot gluing. I want to make sure that my pieces are in the direction the wide bark is at the bottom and it goes narrow up as it goes higher up. I want to make sure that the base is going to be where it gets built up that way. So I'm going to put some dabs in the middle here, nice big chunky bits first, and just using the hot glue gun, simple as that. And then I'm going to line it up at the bottom and just apply pressure and let it sit. Now I'm doing the middle first, that way I've got some sort of grip in the middle, control it. I'm going to let that set just for a minute, but then I'm going to go back along the edges and I'm going to very slowly start to apply glue that will help hold those permanently down against the edge of the cardboard tubing. I'm going to do it in sections, and again just applying a bit of pressure there to get it to hold. And then the goal then will be to match the next piece up alongside of it and seal the join there. So you can see here, I've got a bit of area I want to fill in just in here. So I'm going to get one of my little stragglers. This little piece will be fine. And break off a piece about the length that I need it to be. Good thing is this stuff being thin breaks easily. So I've broken myself off a little bit here. And I'm just going to put a dab of hot glue along this edge here, along that seam, and glue it down just to fill it in. And I've got this seam up here. I think I'm going to also play around with a little piece over that too. Now the good thing is that this stuff here, I take some of the scrap I've got left over, it easily cuts through, so I can actually cut it and then break it off with a careful little bit of time. So I've broken off a small piece that I can now put along here, and so I've got a nice seam piece. Once this all gets painted up as well, it's going to be not noticeable where the seams are, because the paint and the textures I'm going to do between the bark are going to be hiding it all. But yeah, so this is, like, with the exception of the back little quarter, This is like 2/3 of my tree bark now completed and ready for painting. So I'm going to continue doing this with the remaining trees, and the next step will be painting after I've got these done. So my completed forest pieces are all ready to go. At this point, my next stage is going to be painting them. I'm going to show you the next level of painting stages bit by bit as I build up the layers and get the final coating done for them. The next stage is painting, and what I've got is I've got a reference image that I actually picked up off the internet of the colors of the tree I want to actually work with. And in this case, it's the redwoods from the redwood forest up in Northern California. And basically, when I start painting anything, I always start from the darkest color first. Anything that's going to be the most deepest in any crevices when I'm working with something that's three-dimensional, I always prefer to start with the darkest level. That way, the dark color sits in all the crevices, and then when I come back over the top and dry brush my other colors on top of the lighter colors, they will pop forward and leave all the dark areas can push back. So basically, I mixed up myself enough paint, hopefully for a dark brown, which is going to be the deepest, darkest kind of color. And I'm just going to go straight over the top and just start painting into it. Because I've actually got this such texture, I need to make sure that I really kind of get in there. I don't want to have any white showing through. So this first layer is really just a base that is allowing me to go really deep into those crevices and get the base of it. And the trick between this is you always want to do each of your layers. You want to let them dry between pieces. Now I've got a lot of trees to paint, so I'm just going to demonstrate on this one as I go step by step, and you can follow along. I'm going to let this set, and then I'm going to pick up on the next stage. You can see again where I had the heavier, wider base, all my markings in the tree, and it gets narrow as it goes up to make it look like it's actually going up in height and stuff like that. And so yeah, tree number one. With the base paint dry, I'm going to add the next level to my tree branch. I'm going to go with this slightly lighter brown as my secondary coat. This one's going to be actually dry brushing it on, and I'm going to build up my layers from here on in with dry brushing. I'm going to go with the darker brown, then I'm going to go with kind of like a yellow ochre. Then I'm going to come into it with the reds, kind of like the kind of orangey red color that the trees actually kind of are. And then there's a couple of highlight areas as well that are going to be very light dry brushed. So really it's going to be like about 5 different layers here I'm going to add. So in this case, this slightly darker brown, I'm going to dip my brush in. I'm going to get rid of a lot of the excess. Dry brushing involves the brush not to be wet, but to be dry. And very lightly just bristling over the top of the actual branches itself. Anything on the surface is all going to pick up the paint. Anything that's deeper crevices are going to stay the very dark brown that I want them to be as part of the look of this. So there's hardly a difference in color just from the camera. And also it's all shiny. When it dries, there will be this difference that is there that shows that it's just slightly lighter and that it's has more of an impact. And again, really lightly just going over the top. I'm not trying to get into it too deep, otherwise I lose all my texture and color from my original dark brown that I had. I'll put these up to dry and come back with stage 3. The next stage, you'll get to see the difference in this next one, because I'm going to go with the yellow ochre. Now, although the original colors of the trees don't have much yellow ochre in them, there is a few highlights that kind of are going to help bounce the red a little bit, I feel. Sometimes you can test different colors. The good thing is if something doesn't work, you can always go back over and repaint again. So in this particular case, I'm going to do the same thing. Dip my brush in, get rid of all the excess on the palette, and very lightly. This one I want to be a little less heavy on, but I want to just go back over and just kind of do a bit of a very light dry brush over the top again. Just enough to catch the little bit of glint of yellow that goes into it. So yeah, that is the next step, highlighting the bark a little bit. And you can see there's a dramatic difference, and I've got all my very dark areas showing through still from the shadows. So yeah, that is the next step. The yellow ochre, again, a little heavy in the middle there by accident, but I can go back and hit that up once it clears off. And yeah, again, it's getting closer to the look. I mean, it's still totally off. The red and there's a very kind of a lighter color in there. They're going to make a massive difference on my following steps. Usually you'll find also that at this point in time, it still looks nothing like what the final product should look, but all these layers are going to help actually make it work and become naturally, more realistic. So this is the one that's going to be the real layer. This is going to be kind of like more of a terracotta-y red kind of color, a very natural red, getting closer towards the redwoods themselves. I'm going to use this as a dry brush, same thing again, over the top of everything. And we're going to see how this works out. Again, I want to keep it light. I might end up by doing a layer of dry brush, and then I might put in a wash, a watered down wash. This one can go a little bit heavier, because this one is kind of like going to bring out the intensity of the redwoods themselves. And the best thing at this point is making sure that you spend a bit of time. I don't want to go too crazy and too rushed over this. Actually, I'm going to do little circles. It seems to be nice. It's picking up all the highlights much quicker and much easier on the surface areas. But there's a good chance I might do a wash throughout. I might put some darker lines in here as well. Make all the shadows become even more darker. I'm going to play with that a bit later. I'm also going to do a slightly lighter color on top of all this, because in some cases parts of the trees are kind of there's a bit of breakup along the trees themselves, and some of them actually can be and look a little lighter. It's coming closer. It's starting to look like a real tree kind of branch. It's heading towards the redwoods a little more. And yeah, that's the next step. I'll let this dry, and then I'll put on another stage, and I'll do a bit of shadow washes, and then I'm going to do some green moss over part of it. So my next stage is the highlights. I have my image nearby. Now the highlights, I'm not going to use a large brush. I'm going to use a smaller one, because I want to highlight various aspects. I don't want to kind of do an even overall coat, otherwise it's going to get a little boring. So with that, I've picked up a kind of a light yellowy kind of tinge color here. I'm going to try to see what this does. It's going to be the same way. I'm going to still be dry brushing it, so I want to get the excess off. I want to pick an area and just test it out, and just have a look and see how this kind of works. And I'm trying to break it up a little bit. This will be a bit of experimentation, I'm sure, finding the right look and the right technique. But the highlights will definitely help kind of identify the tree branch a little more. And again, if at any point that something doesn't work, I'll let it dry, and then I can go back in, go over it, and enhance it. I'm also going to be doing a shadow layer on this as well. That way I can make some really dark areas work. And then I'm going to step back over it all, and then if I need to do another light layer for the highlights, then I'll do that as well. So this is the next stage right here. Some of the areas are a little heavy. I'm going to go back in though with a shadow wash and also start to play around with that. But again, you can see that it's starting to form a more natural bark and everything. What I would probably do is take some of this color here and water it down and do a wash over the top of everything. That way the light colors in areas are going to leave not so intense. And I think that's going to help as well by putting a wash into it. I'll let this dry, and then I'm going to go in and try some shadow washes on the next one. All right, so this layer is dry. My next step, I've mixed up a black, but I've mixed it down to a milky consistency. And then I'm also going to have myself a cup of water there ready to go. Use two brushes. One of them is going to be for the wash. The other one's going to be for the water. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm going in with the black wash, and I'm going into some of my shadow areas, and I'm kind of just darkening little areas, crevices, stuff like that, anywhere that should be a crevice. Then I'm going to use my watered wash, and I'm going to just bleed it out a little bit, so there's a little bit of a distinction between. You can see that what I'm doing there is I'm just doing it in sections. Same thing. I'm not going to go too heavy. I'm just going to pick some of the deepest areas, but then I'm going to go back in and soften out the edge so it has a bit of a soft edge to it, because I'm trying to find this really kind of midpoint there. Again, it's kind of hard to see on the camera because it's still wet, but when it dries, it'll all dry really nice and nice deep crevices within each of the bark areas. And so again, tree is starting to form. The yellow is coming across as a little heavy, so that's why I want to go back over with a watered down version. The same way I did the black there, I'm going to do the same with the red over the top of some of my highlight areas and push it back a little bit. You can see up here where the tree and the bark sever and separate that I put some different forms in there as well. Again, the same way that I watered down my black, I also watered down some of my reddish color at a milky consistency, and that way it will have enough layer to cover. I'm going to go over it with a small brush again. I'm going to just wash over very lightly in some of these areas that I want to take back a little bit. And then you can see that there's again a difference that hits those areas there. But I also want to go back in with the water and spread it out. I don't want all those areas to totally be that strong. I want to kind of blend them in a little bit more. And again, I'm only hitting the highlight areas of this, but it's starting to have an effect of coming into what I finally want my tree bark to look like. As I get up here towards the thinner areas, I just want to be a little light and careful. So you can see I'm taking back some of the intensity of the yellow here, which is a little intense. That's the goal for this, but I need the yellow in there to help kind of add those levels of layers and different form and different strengths. So again, different levels of this are starting to form the redwood tree that I'm searching for. It's coming together, and yeah, I'm happy with where this is turning out. Again, because it's reflecting in the light and it hasn't dried out, it looks a little bit intense right now, but I assure you once it dries out, it's going to really work. Make it look like and feel like a tree. I'm going to add a little bit more right in here, just because I need it. A bit more enhancing. What you're looking at here is all the different levels of the paints that went into making the tree itself, which is the original dark brown wash that I made, or paint as I made as my base, followed by my yellow ochre color, then followed by the kind of lighter color highlight, and then the orange, then the washes, of course using water to kind of blend in some of that stuff, And that's what it kind of takes to make these levels go happen. Okay, for this last part, I'm going to be using some spray glue. I'm only going to demonstrate this a little bit here because I want to show it. The rest I'm probably going to do outside where it's more open air, that sort of stuff. So right now, my last part is I want to put some moss over the top of one side of a tree. It turns out that the moss ends up by growing usually on the darker side, on the damper side of the tree. So I want to pick a side that I want this moss to come from and look on my entire display and make sure that it's all even throughout. I don't want to have trees with a moss on one side and moss on the other. So I'm going to actually put all my moss on this side of the tree, and it's going to kind of build up, start to break away as it gets higher up where the sunlight would be hitting it. Then it's going to kind of cover around a bit more down here where it's going to be heavier and more dense. And for that, I'm going to use some spray glue, and I'm just going to very lightly spray over very closely a section of my tree. And then I'm going to do this in two parts. Let me just stop this from rolling. I'm going to do this in two parts. I'm going to do the light green first, and then I'm going to do a bit of the dark green over the top. So basically, yeah, let's take this out. I want to kind of just very lightly just go over the top and get a whole pile of it on there. And then I'm going to just dampen it down. Actually, I'm going to use a paper towel and just hold it all down there. Let it go into those crevices and all that. And then I'm going to just pick it up and then use it more down here. It might take a few layers of spray glue for this to start working and get up as heavy as I want it to be. So you can see that the first layer here starts to build up on the green on the one side. That way it has this kind of like mossy tree element to it. I am going to try some of the darker green as well. So that's going to be my next step. So I'm going to also come over, same thing, spray over the top of this very lightly. And then I'm going to hit it over with the darker green. I'm just going to take off the cap on this one as well. And same thing, use the paper towel to kind of hit it down a little bit and kind of hit those areas where I want it to be thicker. The technique works nicely, it gets into those crevices, it looks very realistic when you look it up close, and adds an effect to the final tree. Yeah, so this is the final stage. I'm going to do all of these trees just like this, and then the next stage will be making the tops of the actual branches, which I still have to make and cut, and that'll be the next stage.